For everything, I'd like to welcome you to SCaLE the Next Generation. If this is your first time for this room, welcome. And before we continue, I'd like to address and thank our sponsor, OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE's Open Build service offers powerful team and project collaboration features for forking of packages and merge requests. OpenSUSE Build Services builds DEBs, RPMs, and TGZs for ARM v5, v7, v8, x86, and more for 28 Linux distributions. Pull code directly from Git or SVN and build each package in a fresh VM with OpenSUSE Open Build Services. So be sure to check that out after you get back from SCaLE. And without much further ado, here, let me give you the formal introduction for the talk from Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, I want us to give a big warm welcome, probably our visitor from the furthest this year. I don't know, there should be a contest later, but all the way from Hungary. We got Levente, which I've practiced on that name, so I'm nailing that. And,
perfect.
I'd love to see young kids like this, kernel hacking, just doing it all. I don't even want to tell everything he's doing, so little technical difficulties, resolution might not be as good, but we're running from it back out, and it'll be fantastic. All right? Give a warm welcome to
Thanks for the introduction. So, as you can see, this overflow, this is exactly what I'm going to talk about, right? This is something we didn't want to end up with. So, my name is Levente Kurusa. I'm from Hungary, and I wanted to start with a question. Who here has ever heard the phrase, next year, or this year, will be the year of Linux desktop? Raise your hands. Raise your hand. Oh, so almost everybody. Those of you who didn't raise their hands, you're lucky. So I assume you're familiar with this, and as well as this, right? So literally every year since the past decade has been people claiming that next year will be the year of Linux desktop, and everybody's going to be happy, and everybody's going to use Linux on their desktop computers. But before we get deeper, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm 18 years old. I work on computers. I work a lot of things. I'm from Hungary, as I said. I was an intern at Red Hat. I worked in their virtualization team in Brno, in the Czech Republic, the other side of the world. And I'm also a federal ambassador, so I spread open source and federal and Linux at people conferences, yes. And I also, from this activity, I learned a lot about why people don't like Linux, and this is what I'm going to share during my talk. I'm also a kernel engineer, as Phil said, and I work on the Linux kernel. I contribute to it. Nowadays, not as much as I'd love to contribute to upstream. I mostly contribute to our startup's closed source kernel that we're going to obviously release a little bit later. But that doesn't mean that I'm only limited to kernel. I actually do anything that's low level. So I also hack on bootloaders and anything that is low level. The more low it gets, the more I enjoy it. I also, like a couple of years ago, I wrote myself a Unix kernel clone, but I couldn't run Doom on it, so it wasn't any useful. So, come on, I thought you were laughing. So currently, I work on the Android open source project, so no, I don't write Android applications. Somebody actually asked the question if I write Android applications. I don't really do that. I work on Android kernel now. So what are my goals with this talk? Yes, as I said, I wanted to share my experiences as a federal ambassador, like why people have been, so they didn't really want to switch to Linux as their main desktop operating system. And at conferences, as an ambassador, I talk with people. I try to make them use Fedora or make them use Linux in general. And often they aren't so happy about switching to Linux. Why? We're going to see that a little bit later. And also I wanted to let people know why I think the Linux desktop is broken. So that means it's a little bit subjective, so it might not be the same opinion. Your opinion might not be the same as I do, but I'm giving the talk. So for this talk, we have to define what do we mean by the Linux desktop. Do we mean that by Linux desktop, do we mean that it's actually all the software, all the operating systems that use the Linux kernel, or is it more like the community and not just the people as in community, not the community as in people, but the community as in software like KDE, GNOME, the whole ecosystem around it. And I think that's important to know that by Linux desktop, we don't just mean the kernel and don't just mean the community. And is it just PCs and laptops that we mean by the desktop? Like, can we, widen that phrase to be the mobile handset world and things like that? Maybe we're gonna learn something from them. We will see later. So before digging even deeper, I wanted to share some statistics that I found on the internet about a desktop. Like, yes, 1%. It's not so. I'm not so happy about it, and I want to change that. So this big green thing is 56.26%. That's Windows 7. So we already lost, as you can see. That purple thing here is Windows XP, which is kind of interesting. I think it was discontinued since last April or something, and it still has 80.26%. And we have Windows 8, which ranks third with 13.52%. You do not want to add those three numbers together because you're going to get scared. And the runner-up is 26% Mac OS X. Now, this 26% look like they really made up, but that's true data that I found in netmarketshare.com. And here we go, 1.34% Linux. So we have that blue line, yes, there. So what we want to do is widen that blue line into at least the green, but even more. Right? We want to rule the world. That's our goal. So the most popular distributions, according to DistroWatch, is Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Debian, OpenSUSE. I actually learned how to pronounce that correctly at this conference. And he said it's pronounced OpenSUSE, which is weird. I know. And yeah, the fifth runner-up is Fedora, which I love. I love Fedora. So I didn't find percentages. These were just the top 5 from DistroWatch. Yep, I assume you know that website. So the mobile market share, as you can see, is the exactly opposite. I think we lost the animation somehow. Whatever. So 84.04% is Android, which is a Linux-based, I'd say based, operating system for mobiles. I assume most of the people know here what Android is. And there's also iOS, which is 11.07%. And this is the sole place on earth where we win over Windows Phone, I guess. Over Windows in general, except in the desktop scene. All right, Linux is more popular on servers. That's right. So 2.09% on Windows Phone, and that's what is interesting is even other random operating systems together have more percent than Windows Phone. I think Windows did something very bad there, or we did something very good, right? We will see. So the question naturally arises, I think, like, what can we learn from this data? We're doing something wrong on the desktop. It's not Windows messing up. It's more that we are doing it's not Windows being so good on the desktop. It's just something we are not realizing, I'd say. Something we do not see. We do not see our users. We're going to talk about. So the first problem I wanted to talk about would be desktop environments. And I underlined S because who here knows at least 3 different desktop environments? Raise your hands. Cool. Now, let us assume that we're newbies, that we do not know how computers work, and we do not like tinkering with them. Would we be happy if we had a lot of different desktop environments, right? We had start menu on the top left, we had the activities on the top left, we had start menu on the top right, or whatever. Everything would be different. I don't think, as a newbie, I would like that. So first, this is GNOME 3. Not as how it looks. 3.14, I guess. And we have KDE, the newest KDE with Plasma. It looks completely different to the one before, right? And then we have LXD, which also looks completely different to all of them. And it has some nice icons as well. We have Mate, which is actually GNOME 2 and some other things. And we have LXD. The animations came back. Nice. So notice how they look. If you're a newbie, suppose you see a screenshot for LXD, and you want to make your desktop look the same because, you know, people are usually into making their desktop look nice, especially laptops. You cannot do that on KDE. You cannot do that in GNOME 3. I think in GNOME 3 you can't even put icons on your desktop, or what you call desktop there. So I think it's interesting to see that these at least five different desktop environments are listed here, and they are all different. They look differently. They're configured differently. I'm going to talk about. So yeah, they're all different. Yeah, and for us, somebody who likes tinkering with software, who likes researching into it, like why it's the best, why it's better than all the others, somebody who likes this thing actually, I think that's good for me. Wow, what an animation that even disappeared. But for the technical newbie, somebody who does not want to research what's the best, right, might not actually like it. And it turns out they don't like it. So the next step, we wanted to, with the desktop environments, my next biggest problem is the configuration of different settings. The first problem I wanted to emphasize would be that every single desktop environment has a different configuration application most of the time. And they all have different settings. So maybe on GNOME 3 you can set your USB, your SD card to automatically open photo managers, but maybe on KDE you cannot do that. And suppose you're a newbie and you just type into your Google, how do I set up my SD card to open automatically the photo manager? And you're going to see how to do it in KDE. Suppose you're using GNOME 3, your desktop environment is completely different, and you just cannot follow that application. And you will have to research it, you will have to spend time with it. And with operating systems, if you're a newbie, you just want them to work. You do not want to spend a lot of time on it to make it work. And sometimes what's even worse is that they don't share them. They don't share their settings. So if you've set up your printers in GNOME 3, printers might not work on KDE. I had that problem a lot of times. Who here had problems with the printers? Raise your hands. So that's around half of the room. Who here had used Windows and had problems with their printers? 1, 2, 4. That's a lot less, right? That's what we want. I would be happy if only 4 people in the room had problems with Linux printers, right? Next problem is distributions. Again, I could have underlined S. We're going to see that why. So, yes, okay, I'm going to talk about it here. Stop for a minute. Distributions are, for us as thinkers, again, is a good thing because we like researching, we like understanding why this is better for me, why this is better for others. Like, I, for one, run servers, so I know which distribution is better for me as a server. And I, for a desktop user, I know which distribution is better suited to be a desktop operating system, right? But when you're buying suppose you're buying a bread baker, so what you use to bake bread, you do not want to research which is the best for you, right? Because you just want it to work. You just want to bake bread at home. So distributions are like this in the eyes of a newbie. So the problems with distributions is, suppose you're gonna I'm gonna show you something. So suppose you want, where's the browser? Suppose you wanna install come on. Okay, okay. So suppose you wanna install Firefox. So you're gonna go into Google and type in, how do I install Firefox on Linux? Because suppose you know that you're running Linux and not Windows. So you're going to see the first here, and let's see how good it is. So if you want to, suppose you know what a package manager is. You don't really know what a package manager is if you're a newbie, but you're going to see this step. To install Firefox using the package manager, please refer to the documentation. What? Where's the documentation? Look at the screen, right? You have KDE icon here. Do you have anything like that tells you where the documentation is, or the distribution of the package you're using? No, you're not going to do that. Suppose you're installing out of the package manager. You have the options to install an Ubuntu and OpenSUSE. And suppose you're running Fedora for fun. You only see Ubuntu and OpenSUSE. So how do I install on Fedora? You can type that on Fedora, but it's another click. It's another 5 minutes of researching how do you install Firefox. I don't think you want to do that if you're a newbie and you just want to make it work, right? Let's go back. Here. Okay, so I should have press Shift F5, I think. Yeah, okay. Boom, boom, boom. Good. So yeah. So suppose you you had a disk corruption or something, something that have made your packages go bad. Your package manager or your application center, which is pretty good. Like some distributions, like I think Fedora and Ubuntu also started having something that's called an application center, where you can type in and download all the applications, much like App Store and iOS and Play Store and Google on Android. But you messed up and you found out that there's an error. You Google that, and then you find out that you have to install a package called package dev. First, you don't know how to install the package, right? Because they just tell you install it. And you find out how to install, but it's just another 5 hours. So you end up wasting a day just to get your system back working. And the biggest problem is that the package names, even though they are there are different package managers, but the names of the packages are also different. So on Fedora, we put -devel for development headers, but on Ubuntu they put -dev. And if you type -devel on Ubuntu, you're not going to find any package, you're not going to install anything, you're not going to solve anything, and you're just going to end up blaming Linux for being broken, which is in fact true. And again, the problem: how do you set up your printers? Consult the doctor. So this is actually a really good quote I found by Miguel de Casa. I hope I pronounce his name right. He was the lead. He was the leader of GNOME project, I think. Yes. He was really fanatic for Linux desktop. In this quote, the efforts to standardize on a kernel and a set of core libraries were undermined by the distro of the day that held a position of power. Now stop for a minute. Suppose you are the leader distro. You are the distro of the day. You are what everybody uses. You're what most people use in that 1.34%. That means that if you have a lot of market share, you want to gain more market share. And how you do that? How do you do that? How do you gain more market share? You want to differentiate yourself from others. You want to make others incompatible with you, so they have to work on being compatible with you, right? That's market strategy. And this is exactly what they did. Most of the distributions of the days set up core libraries, set up the kernel, and set up everything that they wanted to use, and then other distributions to catch up had to use them. And this made a lot of problems. This wasn't friendly. This wasn't a community. This was a fight for being the best distro. And in the end, Windows became it, which is in fact the distribution of Linux. So the next thing I want to talk about is nobody cares about Linux anymore, especially on desktop. So as you can see, the kernel fully supports 496 processor supercomputers, yet my laptop has difficulty returning from sleep. Who here has ever had problems like that? Almost a full room, right? This is terrible, right? this is a nuisance. This is not a huge problem because you can just stop using suspend and remove that or whatever. Switch if whatever. It doesn't really matter, but all right. So I'm really frustrated about that. Next thing is VGA, which is the video driver. On Windows, most of the time it just works. I say most of the time because if you want to have very, very big performance, you have to download things and you have to tweak things. But most of the time it just works well enough. And the kernel isn't helping us either. The Linux kernel dismissed binary compatibility. We have very good reasons for that. I say we because I'm a kernel contributor, and I understand why it's important to not have backwards compatibility in this case. And that is because we don't want code that is deprecated, or we don't want code that's broken or bad or not secure at all, right? And the kernel is very important, and the kernel is not just used on the desktop. The kernel is used also in servers. And what just happened? You need your password. Battery. I didn't receive any notification. That's another problem. I'm gonna convince you that the Linux desktop really is broken, right? That was my goal. Goal number one is about to be achieved, right? Oh, it's working. Cool, thank you. So we're back, right? Good. So we do not want deprecated and bad and insecure code in our kernel. Yeah, we have that top bar there, but doesn't matter. And the kernel people have the power to force the industry to help them. So the industry will change. The industry interested in the kernel will change their drivers, they change their code to behave exactly how the kernel wants, exactly how Linux wants it. But the desktop people, that 34% does not have that much market share, does not have that much power to do this. We can't tell NVIDIA or ATI to, I want you to change your driver to work. Recently, I made a blog post about how to make the ATI driver work in Fedora 21. It took me 1 week to figure it out. 1 week of tinkering, non-stop, and then it just worked. It turns out you had to overwrite a lot of bytes in the driver that was supplied by ATI and in NVIDIA, and then you have to do a lot of things. And then it works, but when I type in yum upgrade, I'd rather not do that. It's going to break, I'm sure. So another thing, yes, another meme. If hardware manufacturers made their software utilities for Linux, I would be so happy. They do make it, but it's just it has so much less functionality than it does on Windows. I run Windows sometimes, yes, not at all. And I admit, because sometimes I have to, and yes, I have to. I admit, yeah. So, but then I look at the software utilities that my ATI card has, and the functionality there, the tweak, the settings you can tweak there is just amazing. Right? You can tweak everything, and then I just go into ATI config. It's the command line. It's not even a graphical user interface. It's just a command line utility that allows you to configure, and it's just not that, they don't care about us, I know, but it's still, we are the 1%. That slide broke very well. So another thing, yes, backward compatibility. So Win32K is what's called the graphical user interface library on Windows, and it is backwards compatible, which is nice because Windows 98 applications can still be run on Windows 8, which makes it an 18-year-old compatibility, which is exactly how old I am, right? So, and they can still be run. I just tried that like a couple days, weeks ago, and it was still running. But GTK, the one that GNOME uses, and the other one that's used by Katie is Qt, they aren't backwards compatible. So you cannot run an application you wrote 18 years ago, because chances are it's going to break. More chances that it's going to break than not. So yes, in this slide there's also something that I wanted to talk about, is that GTK and Qt, we have two different graphical libraries. And for Linux, from the application developer perspective, it's really a pain to deploy applications. Who here has tried deploying applications for Linux? I tried. I know. It is a pain. For those of you who didn't raise your hands, which was the majority, it's really a pain. You have to be, compatible with lib version 1, lib version 2, lib version 3, with GTK, with Qt, whatever, a lot of applications, and somebody accidentally types in yum upgrade. It all broke. Your application is not running anymore. You have to fix that, and you're blamed. And first, the package maintainer in the distribution is blamed, but then the maintainer just forwards their mails to you, sets up probably automatic forwarding or things like that. Oh, this one's also broken. So the rate of change is something I also wanted to talk about. It's not so fun if you read my whole slides before I talk about them. That's why I have animations. So Windows updates its major version from 7 to 8 to XP to 7, or whatever, every 2-3 years, sometimes even more. And between that 2-3 years, there is no big change. There's always service packs, but the user interface and core libraries do stay the same. They are minimally updated, which is, security, like in security perspective, that's usually bad. But it turns out Windows solves that really easily by being not secure. And Linux distributions release very frequently. There are distributions that release every month. There are also that release every 6 months, and of course there are ones that release every year. And the problem is that even between those releases, there are possibly big changes. I, for one, know of one distribution that had GNOME 2, and somebody typed in yum update, or it wasn't using yum, it was using its own package manager, typed in package manager update, and then by the next reboot he had GNOME 3, which is a completely different desktop environment. Can you get used to, like, you suppose you're used to GNOME 2, and then you just update your system like you normally do, and then you just, by the next reboot, you go into GNOME 3, which is completely different. But we did have good things happen to us, right? So don't just always talk about the bad things. Be happy. Don't worry. I didn't want to make this talk a rant. So the good things were mostly in the gaming side. We had Valve release SteamOS, which is an operating system that is designed to run games. It's Debian based, and that's really good because we see interesting gaming on Linux, which is effectively fueling the Linux desktop percent on that little pie chart. We also had Crytek engine, which was used, I think, for there was a game that was really good at the time, and it was used for that. It was also ported to Linux. Unreal Engine from the version 4.0 on also supports Linux as it's a target operating system, which is really good because it's, Unreal Engine is really widely used. With just one click, you can just target Linux, and then with a one click, you can get your game that you developed, you designed, run on Linux. Sometimes, because somebody executes update and then it all broke again, right? Who here had? I didn't ask the question. Who here had any problems after updating? Who did it broke? Yes, it broke. Of course, something broke. You just didn't notice it yet. Eventually, you will. The hardware. Haven't seen it, SUSE. So you didn't see it? Do not ever do an update. You're the only person I know right now. You too. I know you're not executing updates.
By the way, I think your things have been a lot more stable, and especially if you get supported hardware, right?
Supported hardware. Oh, right. This is the case with Apple, right? Like, iOS is so smooth because it only has to support one hardware, right? I can write perfect software that runs on one hardware, but not in my other phone, right? That's a good market strategy, and Apple does that very well. Two. Oh, well, but suppose you have macOS, it runs pretty good on your MacBook, but not really. On my phone, I don't think it would work very well. But all right, it's debatable. I agree. But NVIDIA is now compatible with Bumblebee. Who here knows what Bumblebee is? In fact, nobody. Bumblebee. How do you explain that? There's something in most laptops that's called the Optimus technology. So I see some nodding heads now. Optimus effectively allows you to have two GPUs, two video cards in your machine, in a laptop. One is being most of the from myself, it's an Intel and an NVIDIA one. And the Intel it doesn't perform that well, so that's used for static images and two-dimensional graphics. But when you need more performance, the Optimus technology allows you to change to the NVIDIA core seamlessly on Windows. On Linux, it's not so seamless. We have problems, and this Bumblebee thing is a solution to that. This allows you to run individual applications using the other GPU. And NVIDIA, the proprietary driver that was released by NVIDIA for the NVIDIA, wow, I'm saying that word a lot of times. So that was released for the NVIDIA cards, is now compatible with Bumblebee for a long time now. And it's just really good because before that we had a lot of hacks to make it work, and in the end it didn't work anyway. So we also had two open source GPU drivers. We've seen that the respective companies started contributing. So everybody, I think a lot of people have heard Linus saying something bad to NVIDIA a couple of years ago, and show something, yes. I don't want to repeat his words. So he was really frustrated with NVIDIA not contributing, and since then NVIDIA started contributing, which is nice. And the performance, the stability, and so on have really improved. And we are also receiving documentation for the cards, for those parts that we already figured out, but that's another problem. So yeah, what I wanted to see is that even though people act like they're interested, they're not interested. Yes, when is our year? Next year. That's truly optimistic. So you think that current year, 2015, will be the year. I'm always optimistic. So two people raised their hands here, and I'm really optimistic.
Year is always now because we are the ones using it, and we have to.
Yes, of course. For me, for those who use the year stuff, it already came for a long time ago, right? But who here thinks that the next year will be when 80% we reach 80%? Come on, thinking is legal. You can think everything. And I'm really optimistic. I love to be optimistic. But if I have to be realistic, I have to say this, which is not soon, right? Just because we have all those problems listed, right? And so yeah, this is what I wanted to talk. This is where it comes to an end. Hope it wasn't too much of a rant. Try to be a little bit funny. I think I failed. Who here thinks I failed being funny? Oh. So if you have any questions, I don't think you have any questions. If you have any questions, raise your hand. Yes?
What's the standardization of components like an OpenStack for Linux nodes and ways to run your own little session? Won't all these things change in the process?
So the question is, if you manage to containerize the applications, will that solve these problems? Ubuntu has something that's called Click. I think that's what it calls, which is Click application, which really goes back 20 years. So it statically links everything together into one package, and I installed that. I'm not sure if that's the correct direction. It could solve a lot of problems, I'm sure. But as I said, we're going back 20 years when dynamic linking wasn't popular.
With all these problems when you're running it on individual blocks. So when we're migrating where our blocks are standardized and you move from one cloud to another.
Yeah. Oh. Wow. So yeah, that's a good question.
Did you happen to do some research and find out about Chrome?
Chrome?
Chrome OS.
Chrome OS. I never used it. I heard about it.
Well, here's the thing. I've heard that it sold more laptops last year than any other OS.
Who here has a Chrome OS laptop? One.
I don't know anybody that does.
Me neither. That's interesting, right?
My point is that I believe one of the things that is keeping our desktop a mess is the developers that are developing it don't use it.
That's interesting. Yeah, so he's saying, just for the recording, I'm repeating.
They don't use it.
Yeah, yeah. There was some nice tweets a couple months ago when there was the OpenStack Summit, or something, maybe another summit, that somebody took a photo, and it was a Linux conference, a Linux developers conference, and everybody was using Macintosh, MacBooks, well maybe not, yeah, but. Yes, that's a good point that nobody is using.
The other issue is we are sitting right now with very cheap high-speed processors, very cheap RAM, very cheap hard drives or SSD. And what are we doing? We are saying, here's a product, you must learn to use it.
Yeah.
We should be going the other way around.
Yes, and
the user is using it and then make something to give
but the interesting is Windows is not teaching their users.
No,
and
I learned this from Windows. I go out and I help people with Windows machines.
Yeah,
I look at their
Windows is abusing their market share, right?
Icons. That's what they are doing. Now, if I were a developer writing user like a window manager, I would make that possible for them. But we're in an age when we have voice response in a $99 little box, right? You're telling me we don't have the resources to develop a piece of software that deals with the user on info and says, what do you want?
We have the resources, I'm sure.
Why not?
But we have the resource money-wise and power-wise, but I don't think people are interested. Like, we are 1.34%.
Nobody has an incentive. I've been trying to find an incentive to make the desktop better. I can't find it.
Yeah.
The fun is doing all the kernel work and all.
Yes.
But
yes.
Nobody that develops Linux that I've ever seen, including the people in my.
I for one want to make the Linux succeed on the desktop as well as it did on the server and supercomputers, but I find it difficult because when people. When I tell my friends or tell my somebody to install Fedora because I'm a Fedora ambassador, you should install Fedora as well. So when I tell them to install Fedora, and it crashes, because why not? They always blame me because you show me a broken software, I'm going back to Windows, right? It's not easy, and this only happens once, right? Because if you have a bad feeling about Linux because it crashed on your first try, when you're not going to try that again, right? I think, or you have to wait a long time to retry it.
Google has overcome that.
Sorry?
Google has overcome that attitude. They have taken the Linux kernel and they have put a very stupid user interface, very easy to maintain from remote, and they're selling like.
Yeah, but that's another thing, right?
That have them, love them.
Are you talking about the Chrome OS?
Yeah, they can only do two things. They can surf the internet and they can do
it's also that's another way I think, man. If you.
My point is, ordinary people don't want to manage an operating system.
Yeah. I think I said that with my anecdote with the Brad Baker.
So I have a whole bunch of comments, but blog post you could Google that says the only people who matter run Mac OS. The Windows people don't matter. You don't just ignore their
Yeah.
because they don't care. They don't have any money for Windows.
Mhm.
They don't matter. The problem we've had, and I've been doing this for more than a decade now, the desktop environments get crappier and crappier every week.
I totally agree.
I have a wonderful faculty
Oh, I stopped saying something.
who used to work for Thinking Machines. He is in no way a newbie person on. He's been using Sun OS back in the day, all this stuff. Nice big Dell Precision that's certified. We bought it with Red Hat and Linux, it's running Fedora. And about once a week, the mouse cursor just goes away. And if you look on Mozilla, there are tons of people reporting the same thing.
Yes.
And no one ever fixes
Yeah,
it.
because I think, like, at Red Hat Bugzilla for Fedora, there is always, when there's a bug reported, it takes like a month to notice it, because there's so many bugs, right, to start with. But once you notice a bug, it takes a month to find out who is responsible for the bug, right? Who should be contacted. And once you find that person is usually busy with other things. So
We have just, I mean,
we have the resources to.
list of emails of all the bugs in Fedora 19 that were just closed,
Yeah.
and none of them were.
Yeah, yes, because when the product reaches end of life.
Linux on the server is fantastic.
Yeah, indeed.
And Linux is fine, but the desktop environment is not good.
Why don't you use Red Hat?
We don't use Red Hat specifically, so a lot of national licenses, where I work, has
You can lie support.
we have a site-wide license for Red Hat. So that's what we do. So the tools that our people want
I'll
is
just
old.
let him finish.
Red Hat is too old. We don't-
Red Hat is good.
But the problem is Red Hat is much better.
So I think we can continue that after. Yes, you were the first one. Yeah. Yeah.
Part of Linux is the fact that there is choice.
Yes. So he said that part of Linux is choice with regards to desktop environments as well.
And that clashes with the uniformity that Windows gives,
Yes.
which is why people get used to it.
Yes. Yeah. Which is in contrary to what Windows does, which is uniform.
There are attempts being met, that are underway to do some things about this. But on the desktop environment side and sort of on the dev side,
Indeed.
and they're being met with backlash now.
Yeah.
And some of the, it seems to be like this contradiction. And how would we get past it as a community?
I don't know, because with Linux we do have, we admire the choice, the possibility of choosing, I think. I, for one, love to research. I love to research which option would be the best for me, and I love spending weeks tinkering with it. But the other thing with Windows, yes, is it's uniform. It's the same. Every single Windows release usually has to start with, except Windows 8, which failed, as you could see. But yes, uniformity, I think, in life of a newbie is useful, because if like with Windows, I think abuses its market share because people are familiar with Windows and can help each other. People can be familiar with Linux because Linux as a phrase does not exist. Linux exists only in distributions. So you can be familiar with Fedora, I think, and can be familiar with Ubuntu, but you cannot be familiar with Linux, unless you mean the command line, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk about the hardware vendors that are actually selling pre-installed Linux desktops?
Dell does, and my mouse doesn't work.
Right. They're not offering a lot of choices, right? And they're not really pushing the product. And I think Dell does take a canonical approach to it,
Yes.
right? And so there becomes more of a financial incentive and a way to fund fixing these bugs. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of success. And, you talk about the reason, Think Penguin, right?
Sorry?
Think Penguin, the reason, right? And they're not doing enough volume to get the price down. But
as I said, I don't really see Chroma as being that popular. I don't really see people. It was a hype, I think, that dies in a few months.
But you don't think Chrome OS really represents this simplification of simple operating system, uniform interface, restore point for when things go bad, backed up to the cloud, that, the folks at Google kind of went through this and said, let's do it.
Exactly the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, they just went whole hog. It might not be a machine you and I would use.
Yeah. It's a machine, Chromium-based, Chrome-OS-based machines. I think.
Computers right there at Best Buy, you can go pick them up.
$200, $250.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
The statistics change next year if you added the Chromebooks?
Actually, I saw a statistic that just said that Linux's market share on the desktop went up from that 1.34 to like 1.76 or something. And I thought it was Chrome OS because it was included in there.
Chrome OS is 50%. It's like 20.
That was the biggest jump in a really.
Plus or minus 1%.
But the problem is, it's still like only 0.5%.
Yeah, it's really tiny.
Like 0.5% of the whole market is fluctuation, I think. Like it's probably the error as well.
In the article, they couldn't tell if it was Chrome OS or not.
Yeah. It's.
In other words, Google is not going out to the users and saying, what do you want? It says, here's a product.
Yeah.
You got to buy it like Henry Ford.
I don't.
Any color you want, belongs to black, right?
I don't think we do that. We do not go out now and ask people.
Nobody's doing it. Even Microsoft, sure as hell. If anybody suggested 8 was what the users wanted, they're insane. All my customers that are still on Windows XP are terrorized. They're just hoping Windows 10 will bring back the start menu.
Yeah.
For God's sake. They don't know what they're going to do.
If you want to sell a product to distracted users that just displays ads,
No.
Windows 8 is the perfect product.
No, my point is, your question is this our year? It's never going to be our year for Linux, period. There's no hope. The closest we get to it is Android and Chrome.
I want to buy this with no market, or I want to buy it with elementary OS. That's the part.
Well, that'd be the year of the tablet. That's next year's.
Yep. Yeah. So I think we're running out of time. So if you want more, this link is a huge compilation of problems. It's 5 pages long. Yes. Oh, you can see this link, and it's gonna show you a blog post. It has a lot of problems listed. Like, they are really detailed, and it's good. I found that really later. Yeah. All right. So thank you for coming and listening to me.
I wanted to say Amazon Echo is a solution.
Amazon Echo, the one that listens every day and sends my.
Box that you talk to, that's what you want. That's a solution.
Constantly listening in on you in your house.
Oh yeah, let's see.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you. Oh, thanks for making it work.
No, I got you covered.
I was kind of surprised in the first time. So there's I have the same one.
Thank you for coming to SCaLE the Next Generation. Remember to fill out your speaker reviews. If you can go online and fill out the survey for those, that would be great. And as well, thank you for coming to SCaLE, and have a good night.
I was thinking about your point about
You picked a very touchy subject.
Yeah.
Because all of us know the truth and nobody's facing it.
Yes.
Do you agree?
I think you were on it with so much choice is actually a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. The point is the choice for whom? I say let the users have any choice. The developer's job is to satisfy those demands. It's not, the choice.